Hi everyone to our series where we create a Node.js web application from scratch. And I have realized that since a few episodes actually, I've been teasing the idea of adding functionality to these buttons here. So to the add button, to the delete button, and to the set to do to done button. And we have not done so yet. This is why we will currently jump to it straight away so that nothing distracts us from it. Okay, so in order to do so, we need to implement a few more endpoints of our API. What we need is, next to the get endpoint, so an endpoint that serves the get method, we need to create a few more. Mainly, we need to create 3 more endpoints. So the first one will be an endpoint where we will actually create new to-dos. So this will function, or this will serve the button that is right here, right? So this here in the form, we specify the text of the to-do, and then we want to click add, and it should be added to the list. And we need to design an endpoint in our application that will handle the logic, meaning that will take the request that we will send by submitting this form here, and will insert the appropriate record to our database. Maybe as a reminder, this is what our database table looks like currently. We have the ID, the text of the to-do, if the to-do is done, and where it was added. So let's create the endpoint. So we create endpoint in a very similar way to the get endpoint. So we just say app.post, and this is post because we want to serve the content on post method. We'll be sending a request to the database. This is why we can make it an asynchronous. Right from the get-go. Okay, and inside this this endpoint, what I want to do is let's begin maybe let's maybe begin a try catch block. Here I want to do, and I need to define it earlier. I need to initialize a response, and here I want to set the response to await client query. So once again, we are querying the database, and this time we don't want to extract any information. We want to add some information. Values. And this is very important right here, and I should have done it from the very get-go. Here, what you want to do is you want to use bind variables. Let's maybe move that to a new line, insert into to-dos. Let's move the values into new line, and let's move here this into new line. Okay. And now for the values, it will be $1 and $2, because $1 and $2 are the variables that we want to get. And okay, and currently here we need to generate the to-dos ID. So we need to generate the ID of the to-do. And in order to do that, we will need something called UUID. So this is just a package for JavaScript that allows you to generate a unique ID. So to install it, I will open another shell here, and it's enough to say, let's get into our app folder, npm install or npmi UUID. And then you just go to the top here and say const. We want to use the v4. So if you check out the UUID documentation, there it will be a good explanation what is v4 and what are the different options that you have there. Okay, now so we can use this this part we wanted to use to generate the unique ID of our to-do. Okay, so this is great, this is working. And then what we need to do is here, the form, we will receive from this form some kind of to-do text, and we need to also insert it here. So this will come in the request body. Let's just very quickly go back to our index.ejs and check what name did we give to the form or to the input here, and it is here, and it is a name of to-do. Okay, so let's go back to our app, and let's here say request.body.todo. And actually, to-do is maybe not the best name that we've given there, because you can clearly see that this is not working. So let's very quickly go ahead here and let's change that. So let's remove the name here. Let's remove the dash from the name here. Okay, this should be good now. And we need to finish our try catch block by catching some kind of error should it happen. And here I think we have a problem with closing this function. So let's close it. Now our catch will work. And if you catch an error, for now we just want to print the error to the console. So this is very important in web applications, that you gracefully handle all the errors. So for example, when you have an error in the backend, right? So in other words, where this call to the database somehow fails, and on the database is not responding, the table is locked, and the insert cannot be done. You want to gracefully handle these errors, and you want to display some kind of message to the user, right? Even if you have to display a message that there has been an error and please try again later. I'm sure that you have seen such errors on different websites yourselves. Okay, but for now, we'll get to this part later. For now, we'll just display this error to the console. Okay, and this is our post route. So now we can test if our post route works. But before we do that, we need to check or change one more thing. Let's go back to the index.ejs, and here in the form, we need to specify a few things. So first off, action to this form will be to send the data to the following route. However, the method that it will use is the post method. This means that it will get to this endpoint. Okay, let's save this. Our application is already started using the NodeMon. It should have restarted, yes, and there are no errors. Okay, let's maybe do a refresh. Let's remove what we have here. And let's try to add a to-do which is named test. And we get an error. Let's try to investigate why. And what we can see here is that our program cannot read property to-do of undefined. And we try to read the to-do property right here. So the problem that we currently have here is a very common problem. So what we need is a way for Node.js, or to be more specific for Express, to parse the data that we have received, the data that is here in this many attributes of these requests that we have received. We need to parse it so that it creates for us this nice body object, and that will contain our form data. And to do it, it's super simple. What we need to do is we need to go up here in the file, and what we need to now say, and since a few versions of Express, the body parser is included in the Express itself. So you can just say app.set, and then you can set the express.url encoded. And here we can maybe pass a parameter extended, and we can set it to a false value. We can set extended to false because we are currently not expecting any nested objects. Okay, so let's save this and let's go down. Let's see if our app has restarted. Yes. So let's make a new test. Let's say test2, and let's add Okay, and we get a whole bunch of errors once again. Let's see what went wrong this time. Okay, and it actually took me a while to realize whether the problem is. Now, these kinds of errors are always the worst, like these small mistakes that end up taking hours to fix. And the problem is here. This express.url encoded is a middleware. So instead of setting set, we need to use we need to say use. And this should be fine now. Okay, let's check that. So let's here testing to do. Let's click add. And now we see here the testing to do printed because I'm console.log, a very professional debugging tool. However, we also get no error. I will move that, I will save. We also got no error. Let's try to refresh our page now. And we have, you can see that I added one before, and now we have our to do once again here. Okay, but what did not happen is this page did not get refreshed, right? So let's run additional to do, and I will add it. And as you can see here, basically nothing happens, right? This this request is never ending. And if I refresh the page now, only then it has, you can see that it's been added. Okay, what we need to do? We need to do something very simple. We need to return something, right? Because currently our server gets the request and then it doesn't return anything to the client. Right? And now what we can do is rest dot, and we can redirect this back to this page. So I will add some more to-dos. Okay, we can see that they are now properly added, and we can then the page is refreshed and we can immediately see the to-do that we have added here in the list. Okay, so one more thing, or actually two more things we need, is we need two more routes. Now, usually in HTML, when you want to update something in the database, you don't create a post request or like post route, but you create a put route. So let's create it here. You create it the same way. However, here we need to know what we want to update. This is why we need to pass here an ID, and this will be a to-do ID. And this is like a query parameter. So currently, if I go into our application and then I will say something like, okay, for now it's localhost 3000, and then I say slash, and then I insert something here, this this value here will become this ID. Okay, let's go back. But essentially, it's the same thing that we have already done. Okay, so we'll here initialize our response. So once again, we'll start a try catch block, and we will query, and we will say, what's this type of string? We will say update. I will update the to-dos table. We want to set our done to true, and we want to do it where the ID. Let's check if the column is named right like this. Yes, it's called ID. So we want to do where ID equals $1, and this $1 will be our request. And here now, not body, but params. Request.params.todo ID. Okay. And we are missing a catch, of course. And for now, if we catch an error, we will just console.error this error. And when everything is done, we will return race.redirect. Now this return here at the end is not actually needed, but okay. Okay. Now I save it. That will get refreshed. Let's refresh it on the left-hand side, and let's maybe try to finish this. And what happened is we clicked on it. Everything seems to look good, but it's not appearing here. And the reason for that is currently we have a bug, or not a bug. This is how we implemented it in the first run. We have a problem with our get route, because when you see, if you take a look here, we are just retrieving all the to-dos. So we do not take into account anything when it comes to if a to-do is still to be done or if it's done. In order to do this, we need to implement a very simple filter here. And of course, you can do that in different ways. So you could either query the database 2 times, so one for the done to-dos and one for the to be done to-dos. However, you can also do it just fine here in the JavaScript. So here the volumetrics of the data really matter if you want to do it here or there. If you don't have that many to-dos, maybe it's better to limit the number of round trips you make to the database, so the number of queries that you send. But if you have a lot of them and it could cause memory issues, then maybe it could be a better way to filter them on the database. But however, this is currently for us, it doesn't matter to do. So let's filter the to-dos. I will define to-dos, and these to-dos will take the to-dos will take resp and dot rows, and we will filter on it by passing here an element, and when element dot done is equal false. And in this case, this filter method, array method, applies a filter, which is a function that we have passed in here, and the function returns true if the done, maybe not an element, let's make it to do. If the to do is done, then it's not done, sorry, then it returns true because the done attribute is equal to false. Okay, let's copy this part, to do's, let's here say done, done, rest that filters to do's, and now here we have to change it to true. Okay, and now we should be fine. And now instead of the to-dos, we will pass here the to-dos to-do, and we'll pass in here the to-dos done. Okay, that should be good to go. We have no errors, so let's try once again. And currently we have an error, and the error, as you can see, is basically an EJS error. And our EJS error now returns an error because we no longer have this to-dos, but we have to-dos to do. Oh, no, not with a capital O at the end. And let's try to refresh it, and now it works just fine. And the result of our, or the cause of our error, this is one thing, but what we also forgot to do is now we have these buttons here, and these buttons actually need to have some functionality to them. We need to, because these forms actually don't do anything. Okay, so let's currently give them an action. Let me quickly change my keyboard settings. Let's give them an action. So this is the update button, and the update button is supposed to go to our it is supposed to go to a slash, and then we need to here put the ID, and here we can highlight to do dot no, we now call it element. Maybe it's slightly misleading. Let's call that to do dot ID. Okay, and now we specified a method, and now with the method we specified here a method. Let's try it. Method put. And let's try to currently save it, refresh it, and let's try to remove that. And we can see that nothing really happened. It is because we cannot really make put request from our application. So the the HTML application, or rather the application that we have here on the right hand side, cannot really make put requests. It can only make post or get requests. Therefore, what we need to do is we need to use something called method override. So this is a package. Let's go back to our app here, and let's use a separate shell. Let's say npmi method override. Okay, it is installing. It has been installed, and now we say here const method override equals require, and we want to require method override. Okay, and now app dot, and this time very important, app dot use method, oops, not node yet, method override, and now we want to specify a string that will add to our method in order to make it something different than get or post. So here what I like to do is use something like an underscore method. Okay, and now we can go back to our index.ejs and we can try to fix the problem that we had here. Okay, so we are building this and what you need to do is append this underscore method here, and then you say put, and then you set the method to post. Okay, let's save it now. Let's refresh it on the right hand side. So maybe our application is crashed. Okay, I think we've made a small miss. Yes, I can't spell very well. Okay, now it's working as we intended. Okay, so now let's try to finally make a to-do. Cannot post. And the error is because we've forgotten to start a query. So this underscore method is supposed to be a query parameter. So, okay, no, let's not resubmit the form. Let's keep some control over what we do. Okay, here we have the application. Let's refresh it and let's try to finally do a to-do. And still nothing happens. And what we can see currently when I printed out the result of the command, of the update command of our update query that we sent to the database, is that we have a row count of 0. And this means that nothing got updated. I will now remove that. And it's because here I made a typo. It should be to-do ID. Okay, that is why sometimes it makes sense to implement some error handling, right? So if you expect the results from this update, that it all of a sudden returns you a 0, maybe it makes sense to do something, and I think we'll do that in the next episodes, or in the episodes to come. Okay, let's refresh that and let's finally try to set this to-do to done. And we can see that at least it has disappeared from here, but it is not yet appearing here in the done part. And it is not appearing in the done part because our done part is not yet dynamic. Let's currently copy this. Let's currently copy this. Let's here set it to to-dos done. And we don't need this button anymore. And now we can see that we have our right HTML. Let's also say that let's set this, and our app is currently working very well. Oops. As you can see. Okay, so we have added functionality to the button, which is adding the to-dos. Go grocery shopping. We have added functionality to the button, which is setting the to-dos to done. And what we need now is we need to add the functionality to the final button. Let's hope that this time it will be straightforward and without any problems. Okay, so let's come down here once again, and let's say app.delete, and let's here once again pass a todo ID. Actually, we can just take this part, we can just copy it down here, and we can make the necessary changes because this will be very similar. Here we want to have a delete. Here we do the same thing. Here we want to delete from todos, where ID is equal to todo ID, and that's mostly it. That's what we need to do. Now let's not forget, we need to update the forms. So for the forms, here we also have an action that will be very similar to what we have here, but instead of method put, here we will method delete. Let's now do the same thing with this form right here. Oops, I copied slightly too much. I think, okay, no, here we don't need. Okay, let's now refresh this and let's try to delete a to-do. And as you can see, our deletion works very well. Both we can delete from up here and from down here, and we can set it to done, set it to done, set it to done. And we are done for today. Okay, for this episode, that would be it. We have finally added functionality to the buttons. Not without issues, not without errors, but I'm taking you through the errors as I also get them. It's because when you will work on your own, you will definitely get these kinds of errors. You will definitely make these kinds of mistakes. So I think it's also valuable to learn on somebody else's mistakes. And now we will always know, or we will always double check what you have to use and what you have to set. And you'll also remember about the other things that we did in this video. One more thing that we could consider is because currently this file is getting a little bit big, meaning it contains basically the whole logic of our application. So we could move the routes using something called a router to a separate file. But this we'll do in some episodes to come. Thank you for today, and in the next episode we will jump into the CSS, because currently well, it's not very beautiful. We will make it look a little bit better in the next episode. Thank you for watching today.